Welcome everyone to the February edition of the Nonprofit Insight Series hosted by VolunteerMatch. My name is Shari Ilson. I'm the Online Communications Manager here, and I'm so happy to have all of you on the call with us. This month's webinar is all about becoming an organization powered by Pro Bono, and we are really lucky to have Aaron Hurst and Megan Kashner with us. So without further ado, I will introduce them and then hand things over to Aaron. Aaron Hurst is a globally recognized social innovator and leading architect of the growing pro bono services movement. His career is dedicated to challenging and empowering the public and private sectors, as well as individuals and organizations, to drive our collective social, environmental, and economic progress. He is the founder of the Taproot Foundation, a nonprofit organization building a national pro bono marketplace and leading the global service movement. And Aaron is a creative force behind the conception of the National Billion Plus Change Initiative and the Service Enterprise Model. He's a member of the Nonprofit Times Power and Influence Top 50, and he's widely known for his thought leadership in civic engagement, nonprofit management, and corporate social responsibility. He's a regular blogger for the Huffington Post and the Stanford Social Innovation Review. In addition to these impressive credentials, Aaron is known throughout the Taproot offices for his striped socks, post-it doodling, and endless supply of bold ideas. Megan Kashner is Benevolent's founder, CEO, tea kettle refiller, blogger, and overall chatterer. She's a seasoned nonprofit leader with over 20 years of strategic management, community partnership building, and organizational planning experience. Megan has spent her career leading organizations and programs dedicated to bringing innovation to the nonprofit sector and to improving social service support for women and families living in poverty and at risk. She's served as an executive director for the Taproot Foundation and earlier for the Infant Welfare Society of Evanston. She's served as Chief Development Officer for Chicago's Deborah's Place and Program Director for organizations including the Howard Area Community Center, Methodist Youth Services, and the Heartland Alliance. So when it comes down to it, if you're in Chicago, chances are you've heard of Megan. So now that we've gotten to know each other a little better, without further ado, Aaron, why don't you take it away?
So I'm going to introduce the concept a little bit and then have Megan share her story. And then we're actually going to do a little bit of an online demo just to show you some of the ways that we're using, as Sherry said, technology to really empower a new and powerful way to engage people to advance your mission. So with that, I want to share with you a story that I chose to share today, partially because I think it's very parallel to Megan's story, but at a different stage of development. But one of the things that we've heard about pro bono service, which drives me crazy, is people say pro bono service, so getting donated marketing, technology, HR, strategy, tax help, is only for organizations that are losers. It's for organizations who don't have the success to be able to pay for things. It's only what you do if things get really bad and you have no other options. And what we've seen is actually the exact opposite, which is that organizations, many of the organizations that are the most successful in this country are the organizations that are what we call powered by pro bono. They're organizations in which as much as 20% of their budget every year is pro bono. So 20% of the resources they use to get their mission accomplished every year are pro bono. And Donors Choose is a great example of that. Donors Choose, which I'm sure most of you know, is an organization that was founded 10 years ago and has already donated $130 million to teachers in need for projects in their classroom. And at this point have 50% penetration in public schools around the country. I mean, it's really a remarkable story. But the secret to that, and the secret to Charles Best, who's our CEO's success, is that from day one, pro bono was part of the resource equation. And it wasn't just that it helped him save money. It was that it enabled him to get access to a level of talent that he never would have been able to afford otherwise, and way before he was big enough to ever justify the expense from a cash point of view to any foundation. But he also says that it's been critical because it's actually encouraged involvement. So it's not just about the actual pro bono work itself. It's led to deeper partnerships with companies, deeper partnerships in the community at large, better ways of engaging with teachers. It's become part of their DNA. And Taproot's new book, Powered by Pro Bono, really outlines a 4-step process for how you can become like Donors Choose and have 20% of your budget every year covered by pro bono, which won't just cover costs you have now, but instead will enable you to do something that's much more important, which is it'll give you the power to actually realize your dreams. And that's why I started Taproot. I actually started, like Megan, in Chicago and worked for several small nonprofits that were doing amazing, amazing work, just such powerful visions. But at the end of the day, they'd given up on ever achieving a broader vision because they bought into the story that they didn't have the resources and never would to be successful. And therefore, they continue to have nice programs, but never game-changing programs. And my hope is that you, like Donors Choose, will see that that's not an acceptable option, that the nonprofit sector and the community needs us to achieve extraordinary things, and that with pro bono services, you can start to do things that otherwise may have seemed impossible and well out of the reach of a nonprofit. And I can't imagine a better way of sort of introducing that in more detail than introducing Megan's organization, which is a relatively new one, but one of my favorites already, or Megan, who is one of the most talented social entrepreneurs out there. I wanted her to talk about the organization she founded and how she's been using Bono to make it possible. So, Megan?
Hello. I'm pleased to be on the call. Thanks, you guys. Talk a little bit about how Benevolent uses pro bono. Benevolent was founded just about a year, not even a year and a half ago. We launched on December 1st of 2011 online. How we got there, and in our very first year of operation, was, Aaron talked about 20% of an organization's budget being fueled by pro bono. In our first year, more than 300% of our budget was fueled by pro bono. We have, from the very start, known that in order to get ourselves out there and to try to create this new organization, we were going to need help from a lot of people, companies, consulting firms, and in our case, technologists who had skills that we needed to avail ourselves of. And so we have had the pleasure of, and you can see on this screen, working with wonderful pro bono talent from a local web development firm called Webatex, receiving software help from Individual Solutions, being incubated by a group called the Technology Innovation Center. But on top of that, our team, even right now, over a year into it, if you look at the Our Team page on our website, it looks as though, oh look, Benevolent has a staff of 12. Well, we have a paid staff of 5, and then we have amazing interns and pro bono volunteers who do everything from engaging with community nonprofits to market strategy, operations and metrics, you name it.
So Megan, I know you're modest, but you need to tell people what Benevolent does, because it's just such an awesome organization.
Thank you. So Benevolent is new, obviously, and we make it possible for small dollar donors, so people who are donating $20, $50, not $5,000, to come online and help one low-income individual who's facing a challenge. For example, someone might need a laptop to go back to school, or a uniform to take a certain type of job, or gear, tools to take a job as a welder. We've had several of those recently. We work in partnership with local nonprofits who have clients who are striving to reach for whatever their goals might be. And often the goals and the hurdles that come along with them are very specific to that person, that family. And so we like to make it possible for the nonprofit to help their client achieve, and therefore the nonprofit to meet their mission, the client to meet his or her goals, and for a donor to be a part of the solution.
So I think everybody would agree with me. If we did a poll right now, which we're not doing, and it was like, how awesome is what Megan's doing, we'd all say very awesome. So it's great, and it's a great example of creating a platform to help individuals get involved at a level where it really, we know makes an impact. So Megan, this is a volunteer match call. A lot of people on the call are volunteer managers and people who work with volunteers. How do you think about the difference between what a volunteer does and what a pro bono consultant does? How would you explain that difference to folks?
I don't think that there is a very clear black and white line. I think when I was in the trenches and thinking about pro bono all day, every day, I thought the line was more clear than I actually think it is now. when we think about pro bono, we think about someone who is bringing his or her skills and abilities to bear in usually a consultative way to a nonprofit to help that nonprofit achieve its goals and its mission. When we think about volunteers, we often think about people who are coming in and plugging in and helping get a job done. And the truth is that there's a fuzzy line, a continuum, if you will, between someone who can plug in and get a job done and someone who has the right skills to plug in and get a job done, and between getting a job done and being a consultant. So there are people who have been amazing pro bono consultants to Benevolent, so they're not getting their hands dirty. They're helping us determine strategy, outlining sources and metrics and tactics so that we can go forward and be successful. There are others who are purely working, doing the work that needs to be done in order to move us forward. But all of those people are bringing their skills and abilities, whether it is, you know, the engineer on our team who is an operations and metrics and project management specialist, or the social work or, you know, social justice interns who are bringing the learnings and skills that they have to bear. And so, you know, I know, Aaron, you would love for me to say that there's a definitive difference, but I think it's really a continuum.
No, absolutely it's a continuum. I think that's absolutely right. What the people that you've engaged in organizations in pro bono, and where did they mostly come from? And were they people you knew? Was it through your board? How did you meet these amazing people that have helped you so much?
You know, in the beginning, it was a lot of networking and a lot of, you know, starting with the people I knew, and then they would connect me with other people who they said, oh my gosh, you have to meet this person. She's going to adore this idea, and I think she's going to want to help you. Since we've become slightly more mature, you know, we've been around more than a year now, woohoo, people also now seek us out to, you know, to help us and to partner with us, because the other beauty of working in partnership and engaging the use of pro bono volunteers, especially on a consulting basis, is that there's a benefit to everyone. And so there are, you know, there are companies and professionals who are looking to have an experience and to engage with the community in a way that uses their skills. And so we, in addition to being always out there looking for people, we are also fortunate now to be on the receiving end of people saying, hey, I'd love to help. One of the things we did in the very beginning, truthfully, was to simply post ads. We posted, you know, as if they were job postings in, goodness, Idealist and other places to seek people with the skills we needed to round out our team when we were not in a position to be paying anybody salaries.
No, that's great. I think a great lesson, especially for an early stage organization. So I'm going to move forward, but Megan, I'm going to ask you questions throughout to sort of draw on your personal experience on this, because I think it's in many ways more useful than just our framework for how to experience doing this, and obviously having tremendous results as a result. So just quickly, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Taproot Foundation and want to know whether or not what you're hearing has any credibility at all, or whether or not whoever this guy is on the phone is just making it all up, the Taproot Foundation exists to basically build the pro bono movement and to make sure every nonprofit has access to the marketing, technology, HR, strategy, et cetera, resources they need. We have offices in 5 cities, and at this point have delivered over $100 million in pro bono services using over 3,500 professionals to nonprofits in those 5 cities. We've also, at this point, actually the stats wrong, consulted to over 30 Fortune 500 companies to build their pro bono programs. So we also understand, having built many of these programs, how you need to access those programs. We know where the secret doors are and the secret handshakes to help you figure out how to best work with these companies to get the services you need. So that's sort of who Taproot is. And with that, I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today. So, you know, what is pro bono, how does it work, and what resources are available to help you, and I'm going to do a demo as part of that. So what I'd like to do now, and Sherry, with your help, is actually have our first interactive poll, which is very fancy. Sherry is going to put forward a poll that's going to ask a question of all of you, just to get a sense for where the group is. And the question is, have you successfully completed a pro bono project? So I already know Megan will say yes. So we know we've got one. the poll, hold on a second. Sherry, is it working?
Yeah, so people on the screen, you should be seeing the poll on your screen. You choose yes or no and submit it. And I'll be closing the poll in maybe another 15 seconds, and then we'll be able to see the responses.
So again, it'd be great to just see, just to give us a sense for who's on the call and where you're at. Have you successfully completed a pro bono project is the poll question. So as you're doing that, obviously the definition helps. So pro bono is services donated by professionals to organizations working for the public good. So it's when people are actually using the skills they normally get paid for, but doing that without expectation of compensation to help those who wouldn't otherwise have access to them. And it's it's a large but incredibly fast-growing segment of volunteerism. It's right now about $15 billion of the in value per year that is donated to nonprofits. So Sherry, do we have an outcome from our poll?
Yes, I'm closing it right now, and we should be able to see results. Can you see the results?
I don't think I can, but that doesn't mean anything.
I think it's really interesting. It looks like 61% of people have not successfully completed a pro bono project, and 39% have, which is not at all surprising. We've got a lot of people on this call.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Megan, why do you think that? Why would you suspect that that's the case?
Well, what's interesting about our question is that it talks about successfully completing a pro bono project. So what we're seeing in our no responses is not only people who have not started in and tried to engage a pro bono project, but we're probably perhaps seeing people who feel like they haven't successfully completed one, having started one. So I think we've got two different things. One is something that you talked about in the beginning, Erin, which is people feeling like either there's a stigma to needing pro bono or that they don't even know where to start to find pro bono resources, A, and B, people who have tried to engage pro bono and who have been bitten during that experience. And I know that many of us who have led nonprofits have had some negative situations where, maybe we didn't all go in with our eyes open in the beginning, maybe something went wrong in the middle, and the pro bono project hasn't come to fruition.
No, I think that's exactly right. And when I started the Taproot Foundation, most nonprofits I asked if they wanted pro bono said no, thank you. They said, you get what you pay for, or my favorite, the gift that keeps on taking. So, a big part of what we tried to do at Taproot was figure out how to change the reputation of pro bono and figure out what it takes to actually close projects and to have them be successful. Because I had anecdotally seen that roughly half of pro bono projects never got finished. And that certainly is not success, right? So not at all surprising. We now at Taproot have gotten to the point where we have, I think, 94 and 96% of our projects finished. So we truly understood what it takes. And that's what the book Powered by Pro Bono walks you through, is how to create a program and to build this so that you can have that same kind of 90% plus closure rate so that you know the effort's worthwhile. And I think it's the same thing that's true of volunteerism in general. We know that if you don't put the proper management and processes in place, you get bitten an awful lot. So I think there's a lot to be learned, and those of you that are expert volunteer managers, I think, can really appreciate that. So I'm going to go to the next poll, which is around pro bono projects. So we've seen that there are a lot of different types of pro bono projects that people have done. They've done them around strengthening their board, improving their marketing and communications, finance, fundraising even, helping with fundraising, human resources and management, legal. Legal is one of the most common. Programs, so actually getting involved in helping with programs like what Megan described. Facilities, so getting new offices or cleaning up their offices or negotiating a lease. Their actual strategic plan or technology, a challenge for most nonprofits. So, Jerry, again, if you could open the poll, we'd like to ask, where do you have the greatest need? I mean, if within your organization, which form of pro bono do you feel like you have the greatest need for? So I'll give you a second to respond to that. We'll see if it matches our national data when we look at that. So Megan, which of these have you used so far at Benevolent while we're capturing the...
I was just going to say, both from the poll and from the slide where you had actually more choices than on the poll, we've used pro bono for everything because we were in the situation of starting an organization from scratch. So everything from human resources to governance, board leadership and structure, technology, communications, marketing, finance, strategy. There is not a bit of benevolence work that has not utilized governance. You often think, well, how can you get an outside resource from that? Because board governance is very particular to the nonprofit sector. But it's interesting how it does have an overlap with other types of governance and even HR and strategy work.
So for some reason, I can't see the results, but I saw they were posted. Megan, do you want to dramatically share them with us?
Yes, absolutely. So interestingly, it looks as though everything but HR is in the 20%. HR, human resources, is down in the 10%, which is interesting to think about. And I wonder if when people are thinking about human resources, they're thinking more about the benefits and administration side or more about the strategic, if the question had been around talent development, that response might have been different. But everything else, communications, finance, strategy, and technology are all between 21 and 25%. So we've got equal need.
Well-rounded. So we've got a well-rounded group. And I think you're right. I mean, HR to me, I think there's the tactical HR and then there's the more strategic HR. And the strategic HR tends to have more investment when you get to a certain size organization where you start having enough staff where you need to start putting in proactive plans and professional development and a lot of that kind of infrastructure. So that may also be part of that piece. But on a national level, what we've seen is marketing and communications. I think especially because it's so tied to fundraising tends to be the largest source of need among nonprofit organizations. So for those of you that have need there, I think you're absolutely not alone. But the same is true across all of those. I mean, they are key areas of need, and all of them have been done successfully by Taproot, but by many others on a pro bono basis. So it is possible. So how does pro bono work, or to Megan's point, how does pro bono sometimes not work? This is a final poll, which Sherry, if you will provide, which is basically the 4 steps to effectively building pro bono. So step 1 is scoping it. What is the actual needs you have? What is the definition of the project you'd like done? Great. So now you know what you want. How do you get it? How do you secure it? So fine, you've caught it. You've got someone who's going to do it for you. How do you make sure you manage it so that it actually gets completed and everyone's satisfied? And then finally, scale. How do you actually make this something that's not about just one project, but something that becomes 20% of your annual budget? So our last poll today, I believe, just want to understand from you, where do you need the most support in managing pro bono projects? Where do you feel like your organization has the greatest need for additional capacity? Is it scoping projects, getting access to those resources, managing it, or actually figuring out how to make it ingrained in your entire organization? So Megan, for you, where do you feel like it's been the greatest challenge for you of these 4 while people are polling?
I think that managing pro bono resources is the biggest challenge that I've faced in the last year and a half, in large part because there's only one of me, and we needed and received wonderful pro bono in so many areas, and often we underestimate ahead of time how much of our time is going to need to be engaged in making sure that this project has the resources and information it needs so that when the project is completed, the outcomes and outputs are really usable.
Yeah. What have you found to be some of the keys to managing pro bono effectively?
I think the first is setting out expectations ahead of time and just following really good project management tactics. And then communication. I think a lot of people think that when they communicate with their pro bono resource, their person, their team, that they have to, they have to have done a lot of thinking about it ahead of time. But really, just like you would communicate with a colleague, shooting off a quick email, calling things out when there's a red flag, just keeping things going on the communication front so that you're not having concerns that you're not sharing during the process is really probably the most important thing to me.
That's right on. So the results are shared. Megan, again, would you mind sharing what people said?
Yep, and this is not surprising given that, what was it, 61% said that they had not used pro bono. We've got 56% of people saying that the thing they need the most support managing is securing pro bono resources, and that's at 56%. The second highest is scoping the pro bono project. You know, figuring out what they need and how to communicate and define that is at 20%.
That makes a lot of sense. So I'm glad that it came out that way, because it makes it much easier to transition to the next stage here, which is I'm going to take you all on a little journey to our website, where I'm going to show you how Taproot's built interactive tools to help supplement the book that basically goes through everything and gives a lot more of the detail. But we've created an interactive version. I just wanted to demo for people, and Megan can provide color commentary over of sort of how we're trying to help you scope and secure pro bono, so that you're not just relying on Taproot for service grants, but you can actually use our site to get access to the people and organizations you need. So I am now, and you've already seen my amazing skills at using this technology, going to attempt to switch from the PowerPoint to a browser. So here we go.
And Aaron, I'm not sure you're sharing your screen anymore, because, oh, there we go. Now I see it. Oh, you got it.
Does that work?
Yeah, that works.
So I'm very happy to announce, I'm sorry, this is just a little moment of complete distraction, but we just launched today a new ticker on our homepage. You can actually see the dollars of pro bono being delivered every second. Does everybody see that? I'm pretty excited about it, but that's not at all part of the presentation. So I'm just really proud of it. So this is the Taproot Foundation website, taprootfoundation.org, and you'll see on the website, halfway down the screen here, it says the Pro Bono Marketplace. And this is really where we're trying to build the equivalent of the Foundation Center, for those of you that are in the fundraising hat, some place where you can go to find every program out there that provides pro bono, as well as provides help for you to scope the projects that you need. So I'm going to walk you through that. Our goal is that eventually, and this is still in its first 3 months, our goal eventually is that you'll have thousands of pro bono providers in here, so that you can really come here, no matter what your need is, no matter what part of the country you're in, you can find who provides those resources. So it's no longer a guessing game. And as I said, this is really modeled after the Foundation Center. And the Foundation Center, I think, has 250,000 different foundations in their database. So if you're an organization working with kids in the Bronx, you can look up and see who funds that. Our goal is that that same organization could look up and see who could do a new website for them, and that this would eventually enable them to do that. We're not there yet, but this is the first steps towards achieving that dream. So the first piece is around how do we scope a project. So we heard that a lot of you here needed help with marketing and communications. So I'm going to take you to marketing and communications. So what you see here is that we have gone out and done research and identified the 119 most common pro bono projects. And for each one of them, done a write-up on them and helped you think about whether or not they'd be a good fit for pro bono, whether or not they would meet your needs, and also how to secure them. So it really helps you go from, I know I generally need marketing and communications help, to now I see there's 17 projects that I can read about and see if this is actually the project that I need done, right? So let's take an annual report. You'll see a description here. You'll see what the deliverables are for a typical annual report. It is offered by Taproot, so if you fit our criteria and are in one of our cities, it's something we might be able to help you with. But you might want to know more, so you click on more. And this shares that an annual report has the following deliverables, which I'm highlighting now. It's got key management risks. So for someone needing an annual report done with pro bono, you need to know that it requires significant knowledge about your organization, requires significant staff time to do the project, and will require your executive team to buy in from the start. So those are some of the things that we've seen are critical to doing annual reports on a pro bono basis. We also share in this blue box over here, what is the project impact? So what can you expect this project to do to help boost your mission? And then at the bottom here, it shares ideas for how to secure this project from Taproot, how to secure it from another institution, or how to secure it from an individual. So for example, for an annual report, one of the common needs is for graphic design. So if I click on this graphic design link, what it does is it goes into my personal database, or in your case, your personal database on LinkedIn, and shares the people that are in your network who have graphic design as one of the skills in their network. So it gives you immediate ability to find people that are already in your network that you know or someone you know knows who can help you with graphic design. And why this is so important is that our research has shown that it's not that hard actually to recruit someone to do pro bono. I mean, it's not easy. Let's not kid ourselves, but it's not that hard. The hard part is getting someone who's going to stick with it throughout the whole project. And we found the key to making that happen is finding someone who has an actual connection to you or has what we call social capital, right? So that if for whatever reason their life gets hard, they're less likely to just walk. People who just generically go to an organization and don't have a connection are much more likely to walk away when things get tough. Whereas someone who's connected to a board member, to a member of staff, is far less likely to walk because they know that it'll hurt their reputation. So being able to find people out of your own personal network or the network of your board is absolutely vital, and why we really have set this partnership up with LinkedIn so that you can go directly and see who in your network is a fit. So I just want to show you a couple of other project types. So we could have also gone and done, let's see another one, strategic plan. I just saw that one. There it is. We pull this down and you'll see that there are two different strategic planning projects. One of them is a strategic plan, again, deliverables. But look, oh my heavens, look at these management risks, right? So you've got far more than an annual report, because doing a strategic plan with pro bono is not a trivial endeavor. And you really want to make sure it's something that you want to do and that you've got all of these risks well thought about. But obviously the impact of it up here in the blue box is great. And similarly, if I wanted to find someone to help with this, I might need a market researcher. I can, again, go back into my network and find the people who are in my network who have market research backgrounds who could help me with that project. So I'm hoping that makes sense to everyone. It's a way for you to really mine your social capital to find the people with the skills that could help you and therefore much more likely to follow through. So let's assume now that you know you want a strategic plan. There's nothing in your life you want more than a strategic plan. You've seen the risks, but you know what? You're going to do it anyway, and it's time for you to secure it. So you click to secure. And here, you can also secure it through individuals, but it also enables you to search 355 known pro bono providers. These are not individuals, but instead institutions. So let's say that you, like my friend Megan, are in Chicago, Illinois, and you're really looking for strategy help. You would say, I want to go find providers. And it shows there are 19 known organizations to provide strategy help in the city, in the greater metropolitan area of Chicago. And you'll see those listed here, right? So Taproot's there, A.T. Kearney, Abbott Labs, big office there, Accenture, Bain, Catch a Fire, Chicago Business School, Booth, a wide range of organizations that are known to do it. We're not saying all of them are perfect, but we know that they have in the past done pro bono, and therefore are places you should consider. So let's go to Bain, because Bain is a great example. Bain does about $50 million a year in pro bono services, much of it's strategy. So again, in partnership with LinkedIn, what you can do now here is read about Bain. You can see that they serve nationally. The areas that they tend to help people in, or nonprofits, are financial management, leadership development, and strategy management. So yeah, this confirms, like, they might be able to help you with it. We then show you some of the most recent news about pro bono at Bain, so you can get the background. So when you call on them, you can say, hey, I see that you've been working in North Texas, and show off your knowledge about Bain and make them feel like you really are close to them. But more importantly, it also shows you who in your network is connected or who works at Bain, right? So you'll see here I have 662 people in my personal network who are at Bain or used to work at Bain. These are people who I can then reach out to and say, hey, I'm interested in getting pro bono strategy work done with Bain. Can you coach me on how I need to frame the ask and who I should be talking to? It's not saying these people are the ones that can decide to do it for you, but they're insiders that you know already that can help you navigate Bain. And then it gives you some tips about who you should contact. And typically it's a traditional funding contact or a functional expert. It talks about the business case for pro bono for a firm like Bain, gives you a tutorial on how to really use LinkedIn to do more, and then talks more about their motivation so that you can really understand what it's going to take to win them over. So these are the two tools that we've really provided to help address that 20% of you for whom scoping is the greatest challenge, figuring out how to articulate what your need is, and then the 56% of you that need help securing. We help you use your own network to get to the goods and to help frame it in a way in which you're likely to be successful. So Megan, how would you use something like this at Benevolent?
You know, it's interesting. At Benevolent, I haven't used this tool yet. I keep thinking I'm going to do it, and then I haven't yet. So it's interesting. I love that you can go on and find companies like Bain who are doing pro bono in your community. I love the LinkedIn match. You know, how do you match up with people in your own network already? But if I'm a nonprofit leader, the immediate questions that pop to my mind are, well, what if my LinkedIn network isn't big enough or doesn't touch the right competencies, A, and B, how do I get the attention of a Bain if I don't already have, often the lore is that in order to get pro bono from a big consulting firm, you have to have a partner sponsor that pro bono project, or, you have to have an in, you have to know somebody. And so I think we need to talk to that. So I think using these resources are amazing because you can find, who's willing to help in your community, who's looking for nonprofits who are ready to receive help. And I know that, Aaron, you hear all the time from corporations saying, how do I find the nonprofits who are ready to engage us at a pro bono level and to scope their project well and to engage with us responsibly? And at the same time, having run sort of, some small to mid-sized nonprofits in my day, I also look at this and I think this could be hard, not impossible, but hard.
No, I think you gave just the answer I was hoping for, so thank you, Megan. I promise everyone that was not pre-orchestrated, but what we found is that becoming powered by pro bono, so it's one thing to just do one project. To really figure out how to have this be 20% of your budget, you need to do something that the best organizations doing this do, which is they think about it in terms of the design of their board of directors. And that's why we have this other section on our website on pro bono and boards. So we found that the organizations who really over time build this capacity to use pro bono integrate it into their board. And the board is what gives the connection at the right levels to the Bains and to other companies. It's what enables you to also help with the scoping, et cetera. It becomes ingrained. And today we've become too reliant on our boards just for cash, legal guidance, and financial guidance. But in reality, pro bono is the area where I think you can get a very, very significant bang for your buck. The average board member nationally, based on research we did with BoardSource, donates $1,000. But that same board member on average generates $10,000 in pro bono. And yet the design of our boards is all around that $1,000 check. And we're really missing the opportunity. So one of the things that we advocate at Taproot, and this doesn't happen overnight. This is not about how to go get this done tomorrow, but it's about how to build an organization that's sustainable for the future. We advocate for 4 new board members to be added to your board. Or if you already have people with these backgrounds, to have them sort of move into this capacity. One is a technology expert, someone with a large IT network, who can build technology literacy on your board, can help connect you to pro bono technology resources, and can help you scope projects further after you've done the initial scoping on our site. A marketing expert. Nonprofits need to have marketing competency on their board. It's such a critical resource these days. And similarly, to get marketing resources, it's so helpful to have a marketing exec on your board. An HR expert. I know many of you didn't want HR pro bono help, but for those of you who do, I find it an invaluable resource and have several of these execs on my board because they help with board governance, they help me with personnel issues, they're mentors to me, and HR literacy is critical on a board. And then finally, the strategist expert. This might be your partner from a consulting firm or someone who knows those folks who can really bring that literacy and help scope that. No nonprofit, or I should say very few nonprofits, are big enough to have this kind of executive level experience on staff. It just doesn't make sense. Bringing it onto your board immediately opens up so many more resources, especially if you let them know that you're not just looking for them to show up at board meetings, but that you're counting on them in this expanded role. Because it's interesting, when I talk to just about every nonprofit ED, they say, my board members are not engaged enough. And when I talk to board members, they say, I want to be engaged more, but the ED doesn't know how to engage me. Pro bono we've found to be a silver bullet for addressing this because it gives a very concrete way for the ED, the staff, and the board to partner. So really helps to start to address that. And I just want to reiterate, this is not, again, something that happens overnight, but if every year you start electing one of these folks and start building it in, and you start doing pro bono, you'll get to the point where that flywheel will take over, and you will see your organization transformed. So I know we've only got about 15 minutes left, and Sherry had asked we'll leave some time for Q&A. Before we do that, I do want to point out that on our site, as well as in the book, we also have a section on how to manage pro bono, to Megan's point, with everything from preparing for kickoff all the way through to evaluation and celebration. And each of these, it goes through, in a decent amount of depth, what the keys are to success, so that you can really think about, as you're going through each of those stages in your project, how to set up for success. And it also goes through the 4 steps of scaling, from being a beginner, which it sounds like many of you are, to being powered by pro bono, where you have that 20%. And again, all this stuff is detailed with a lot more depth in the book, which you can find on our website as well. And I plug the book not because we're looking to make money on it, because we don't, but just because we put several $100,000 into writing the book to make sure all of you could learn from what we've done in our first 10 years, and just really want to make sure that people are taking advantage of it. So just know it's out there for you. So with that, Sherry, do you want to explain to folks how to pose questions to Megan or to me?
Sure. I'm going to take back control of the screen then. Let's see here. And there it is. All right. So if you have questions for Aaron and or Megan, you can enter them in the chat box at the bottom right of your screen, or you can enter them on Twitter using #VMLearn, and we will try to get through all of them. If your question is not answered by the end of the session, we will try to get back to you offline as well. So hopefully all your questions will eventually be answered. Before we do start with the questions, I just want to say thank you so much, Aaron and Megan, for that wonderful presentation. I also want to put in an extra plug for the book. We have it here at VolunteerMatch. It's an awesome guide to working with pro bono volunteers, and we actually have a series of blog posts written by our VP of Communications and Marketing, Robert Rosenthal, as he was exploring the book, that goes through each stage of becoming a powered by pro bono organization, from scoping and securing and managing and all that. And I definitely encourage a read of the blog series so you can get a taste of the wonderful resources that the book provides. That blog series is on engagingvolunteers.org, and I'll send out the link to that in a bit as well. So let's get started with the questions. First one here, and there's a lot of good questions, so I'm going to try and just go in chronological order for when they came in. So the first one is a good one. In general, do pro bono projects have to be more discrete and project-based with a defined objective and a time frame, or can it be more ongoing and amorphous and more of just a skills thing? What do you feel works best?
So I can share our point of view, and then Megan, if you want to add your experience. But it could be it can be anything you want. I think that the more well-defined it is, even if it's a series of small defined projects, the much higher the odds are of your success, right? And even if it does over time morph into something a little bit less defined, building a relationship based on very clear expectations and scopes of work is how you build that muscle of working together and building that trust. If you do that for several years, you may get to the point where you know shorthand and you trust each other enough. But in general, pro bono is very hard to complete because people are trying to do day jobs on top of it. You're trying to communicate across sectors. So the more explicit you can be about expectations, scope, et cetera, the much better the likelihood of closure. But I'd also just quickly add, for example, we have pro bono counsel from Wilson Sonsini in Palo Alto that does all of our legal work. And with that one, it's just an open relationship. And anytime we need something done, we can reach out to them and know that they'll help us with it. But with each project, we spend time before we jump off scoping it to make sure we both know what success is. Megan, what's your experience been?
My experience is almost exactly what you're talking about, in that the projects and outcomes need to be defined. You need to be clear about what are the expectations. Whether it needs to be discrete, and have a clear time boundaried beginning, middle, and end is, I think, a different question. So, if you're looking at an external resource and they're acting as consultants to you, you really want to be very clear about when do you all expect this to be completed, what will completion look like, what is everybody expecting. On the other hand, if you have, like we do, we have a marketing person who comes in every Monday, and he is our marketing smart guy, every Monday. And so I don't necessarily know from, week 1 to week 4 exactly what the scope of what we need him to engage on and advise us on and do will be, but at the outset of bringing him on as a pro bono resource, we were all very clear about what the constraints and expectations would be and how we would define projects and success.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's move on to the next question. Someone is wondering if there are resources that provide templates for writing pro bono ask letters, or if you have any tips for reaching out and trying to secure pro bono.
Yeah, so our book includes some of that coaching and examples of how to frame stuff, and also what the most common questions are that a company is likely to ask in evaluating pro bono. But you'll also see in that resource I walked you through to secure pro bono, for each type of organization, we talk through sort of coaching on how to position it to most likely have a successful response.
Great, great. So this is a great question, actually, and Megan, you probably have a really interesting perspective on it. Someone is just at the beginning stages, just starting out their nonprofit, really just in a strategy planning stage. In what ways can pro bono be most useful for them?
I think pro bono has amazing applications, especially in that early strategy phase. I think the very first questions that we all have to ask ourselves before starting into a new project have to do with something that is a core competency in the for-profit sector, which is doing a market scan. Who's out there? What resources already exist? Who are the other players in the marketplace? Where do the opportunities lie in terms of collaboration or learning from someone else's success or challenges? Doing that kind of a marketing scan is in the core competency of several consulting as well as just regular corporate folks, because when they launch a new project or product, that's the kind of work that they do. And so I think it's really important to get some help in the early stages looking at your new project or your new potential nonprofit from that sort of market perspective, looking at all of those facets. So that's where I would start.
Great, thank you. And sort of on the flip side of things, what about for really huge organizations, national organizations with multiple chapters across the country? Is there a holistic way to approach pro bono engagement for these organizations?
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at this, if you look on the website, sort of that stage 4 is scaling, you'll look at sort of how do you start off in one department of a large organization, piloting pro bono, then slowly expand to others, and then slowly over time integrate it across the entire enterprise or the entire organization. So I think it is really important to think about it small first, but with a vision towards scale and building the culture, the processes, et cetera, to make it happen. I would say one of the key things with a large organization like that is you probably already are doing quite a bit of pro bono. So I would start with an exercise sort of similar to Megan's environmental scan or market scan for a new startup about what's going on in the field, of trying to do a scan of what's actually going on pro bono in your organization. Because my guess is many of your chapters are using pro bono already, your headquarters might be using it, your board's probably helping with it to some degree, and it's easier to get people to embrace pro bono if they feel like they're on the inside and not the outside. And you can help them feel like they're on the inside if you can show them they're already doing it, and it's not something new, it's just about being more intentional.
Great. And this is a question for Megan. Did you mainly engage individuals as pro bono consultants in your experiences, or did you also partner up with companies to get pro bono volunteers and pro bono resources? And in terms of companies, is there an approach that either of you would recommend?
So we did both. We had a great team of both doers and advisors who were individual professionals who helped us on everything from marketing to HR, finance, IT. But we also had wonderful companies, including a web development firm, a social media firm, 2, 3 law firms, because in the beginning there's a lot of law stuff that happens. Goodness, what else did we? I would have to go to my website, but I'm trying to keep my eyes on the webinar to remind myself of all the different companies that helped us. We found that in the beginning, professional services firms were best suited to engage with us on a pro bono basis, in part because when a company's work is to consult and to help other companies, then we, the client, right, the pro bono client, the nonprofit, we didn't have to do as much project management as we would if we were engaging with, with a different type of company, like a, here in Chicago, like an Allstate or a Kraft or a, you name it. Oh, look, one of my colleagues pulled up the site. Oh, yes, and a company that helps people do good presentations, a company that does market strategy, and a company that does community development consulting. So we did both.
Great.
Was there a second part? Was there more to that question that I missed?
Oh, I think they were wondering if you had any tips for engaging with companies for pro bono.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I knew there was more. The biggest tip that I have is to keep it personal. Try and connect with one person in the field where you need help, and let that person, whether they are from the company that can turn out to be your pro bono resource, or whether they can refer you on, it's going to take a lot of phone calls, coffees, lunches to network your way into finding the right person at the right company who have the right skills to jump in and help you. And to Aaron's point earlier, bring your board in on that work as well. Use their networks as well.
Great, thank you. Those are some great tips. I want to squeeze in one more really great question before we end. And this one, I think, is relevant to a lot of organizations across the country who may be smaller, locally based, and aren't in a major hub. They're not in a major city. They don't have any significant pro bono resources that they know of around them. They may be hundreds of miles away, the big city or a big company. So how can they secure pro bono resources? Is virtual volunteering a possibility, or is there some way to find pro bono resources even when you think you don't have them, or what can those organizations do?
Well, short of moving to New York, which would be very expensive, so I don't recommend it, I think the thing that I've seen work best, and I haven't seen it on a large scale, but many of the folks who grew up in that kind of an environment outside of a major city end up moving to cities, end up moving, going off to college and moving to cities and building careers. And many of them want to get back to where they came from and where their roots are, but don't have an avenue to do that. And while I demoed LinkedIn earlier, I've seen some groups that are in more rural or small town areas actually use Facebook to find people who went to the high school with them, who are now in cities, who are designers now, who are at corporations, and ask them if they're willing to virtually help an organization back in the town where they grew up. And there's a real strong emotional connection, and they can bring other people in that way. That's been the most powerful example I've seen, where you just sort of really think about who's in your network, even if there isn't a McKinsey headquartered in your town. Megan, any suggestions you'd have?
Yeah, no, I do think that virtual volunteering actually can be possible, especially around pro bono. If you've got the project clearly and cleanly scoped, if you can figure out whether it's, the person is from town, or whether your town is facing certain types of socioeconomic challenges that a certain company or person is compelled by and wants to help with, I think it really is possible. Today's technology makes it possible for us to connect by phone, by video conference, using shared documents. You can all be editing one document at once. There's a whole lot that we can do now. And what we've learned through Benevolent, I have to say, is that people, human beings, are happy to help, and it doesn't always matter to them where the people they're helping are. So for example, in our first year, we were posting needs only from nonprofits and individuals in the Chicago area, but we had donors from almost every one of the 50 states and some from overseas, because the desire to help and to step in and to be of service is a deeply human desire, and it doesn't necessarily care where the help is going, geographically.
Great, thank you both. We are out of time, so before we sign off, just a couple quick logistical things. First of all, we have an upcoming session in a couple weeks, actually, with Razoo around nonprofit crowdfunding and online fundraising, and that should be great. So you can reach that, you can register for that at learn.volunteermatch.org. And finally, as a reminder, we will be sending out an email within a week to all of you with links to the webinar recording and the slides. So no worries there. Again, huge thank you to Aaron and Megan for taking their time and sharing their knowledge with us. And thanks to all of you for calling in. I hope that you learned a lot and that you'll be able to turn around and get some great pro bono going with your organization. Everyone have a great day, and we'll see you on another call.
Thank you so much. If anybody has any questions, feel free to email me anytime at aaron@taprootfoundation.org.
And similarly, I'm Megan at benevolent.net. I'm happy to advise.
Great, and we'll send out that contact information in the email as well. So, okay, thanks everyone. Have a great day.